Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. All right. Okay. All right. Welcome back. Welcome in to another edition of Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And we appreciate all of our great sponsors and all of our great friends. It's presented, of course, by Titan MRI from the Shackow and Mercandone Studios. Hope you guys had a great weekend. You know, I got to be honest. Mine was a little too lethargic. We had a good time Friday. Went out, watched that game, that UCF game, in 4 different places, which it's hard to do. We went to Ballyhoo, then we went to another place, and then we went to our house, then we ended up going to another person's house. So I watched that game. So that's the way my weekend started. But Saturday, man, I just wanted to watch football and watch the game and see what – I just wanted to know what was going to happen. It wasn't even like I've got this thing on what do you call it, Statmaster. So when a play happens, it comes up, but TV's about 7 seconds behind. So I literally got where I was watching the plays on Statmaster because I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was going on, what was happening in this game. And as it turned out, a lot of good things happened. Enough bad things happened that Florida lost the game, but certainly it was a great day in Gainesville. I don't think, look, I am never going to sit here and you go, well, they didn't do bad. That's good. Or what a moral victory that was. No, they lost. They lost the game. They lost the game for a multitude of reasons, a lot of little mistakes that added up. Obviously, the 2-point play, I'm not sure was a great call, but again, they were running the ball pretty well. But the one thing you take away from this game is that this Florida team won the line of scrimmages against the team that always wins the line of scrimmages, right? Florida rushed for 250 yards. Alabama didn't get to 100. Florida won the line of scrimmage. That's all. Now, I will say this, Alabama pass blocked pretty well, although Brenton Cox got in there several times and did some good things. But, you know, the bottom line was that, Florida just didn't get off to a good start. They didn't look ready. They looked like the team that was intimidated by the big crowd. And sometimes that does happen. Don't think that never happens. Where a team playing a big game in front of a huge crowd, especially when you have gone through what all these guys, like everybody did, but Florida, not playing big games in front of big crowds and everything, and then all of a sudden, all you'd heard all week was this game was so big. And I kept telling people, look, it's huge, it's really cool, it's fun, but there'll be another one right after it. Okay, don't forget that. But I'm not going to allow myself to say, oh, moral victory or anything like that. But I did walk away from that game feeling like, wow, that Florida team's either better than I thought or Alabama's not as good as I thought. And I think there's a little bit of both. Florida did an unbelievable job in what they were able to do in terms of running the ball. Emory Jones played well. I mean, yeah, it's easy to sit here and say, if Anthony Richardson had played for 3 plays, that would have been the difference, and it might have been. But you know what? If Jordan Davis had played against Florida last year, they probably would have beaten Florida. You can only play with what you have. You can only go with what you have, and certainly there are people that don't understand why Dan would hold them out. But, again, if this was the only game that mattered in your season and the season ended tomorrow, you would probably have played Anthony Richardson, but it's not. You're trying to win an SEC East championship, okay? And to do that, you got to beat Georgia. You want Anthony Richardson, in your mind, 100% ready for that game, not for this game. He wasn't ready for this game. He could have played. He was doing flips on the field before the game. But I get why he didn't play. And I'm sure we're going to do radio later today. I'm sure I'm going to hear it from fans. You should have let him play. We could have won the game, and he might have been lost for the year, but those hamstring things, I talked about it last week. They can come up and bite you. And then when they bite you, sometimes they bite you for a long time. I've seen guys do this where they had a little hamstring problem and then they thought it was okay, went out, did something, and was out 6 weeks. That's what Florida wasn't ready for and decided not to do it. And Emory Jones obviously did not start well, but after that played well. They got to figure out how they can get him to start a little better than that. But it was certainly an atmosphere. Now, again, guys, I got to be perfectly honest. I chickened out Saturday. I didn't go to the game. I had it just made a lot of sense not to go. I'm not 100% comfortable with going to games right now, just in terms of all the stuff that's going on. I know there are people in that press box that refuse to be vaccinated, and that bothers me. But you wear a mask. I will probably go to this one. I just didn't. I don't know. There was something about it that didn't feel right, so I didn't go. But I can only go by what everybody tells me. And everybody tells me how great it was. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable atmosphere, louder than hell. Made it tough for Alabama. All I can go by is what the Alabama players said after the game and what the Alabama writers said after the game. I mean, they were like, man, that was ridiculous. We didn't know the swamp was like that. Well, and this is what happens. You see a game, and then 6 years later you see a game, and you're trying, in this case, 10 years later, you see a game, and you're trying to compare crowds, and you can't do it because you can't keep that memory that long unless you taped it and then retaped it again. But, I mean, obviously, Gator Nation showed up. All the celebrities were there. It was great. Great day. It was a great weekend. I had a great time Friday going out and doing everything. But so where does Florida go from here, obviously, is the case. And look, we all said last week, or at least I said, they were playing with a little bit of house money and that it's going to still come down to beating Georgia. If you win out and beat Georgia, you're in the SEC championship game and you're playing a team that really doesn't want to play you. Now, nobody ever says, that Alabama's scared of anybody. That's 2 games in a row where Florida, because there's not a huge coaching advantage, not any coaching advantage. There's a lot of coaching advantage when Dan Mullen goes up against some guys, and there are very few coaches where the other guy has that huge advantage. I can't think of one, to be honest with you, including Nick Saban. Now, building a program, what he's done, the best, I think, in the history of college sports. He's done an incredible job. But now you've got a Florida team, and they're going like, hey, we can run it on you. I don't know if you know it or not. We can run it on you. Nothing you can do about it. We can run it. And you can't run it on us because we've built this defensive line. That was one of the interesting things I took away from this game. I'm going to try to we're going to have Peter Burns on here in just a little bit, okay? Again, here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Shack Out Merchandise Studios. We're going to have Peter Burns on in a minute. But I got a lot of things I need to get to. And then we'll get to all of our other fun stuff. But I got a lot of things I want to say. This football team has something I didn't think they had. Now can they sustain it? That's what I'm wondering. And we'll see. Because you've got a home game again, but it's not Tennessee. I mean, it's not Alabama coming in here. What are you able to do with it? Are you able to say, business, let's go get this job done? Crowd won't be quite as loud. Crowd won't be quite as big. But can you say, hey, we need to go do our job. If we do our job and win this game, all right, that's another step. You got another huge one coming up the next week against Kentucky. But here's the thing that's amazing to me, and I think that Gator fans, one reason, and again, I'm never going to say, hey, you know what? That was okay, Florida losing by 2. No! I got a little bit of that Saturday night. I pushed back against it. It's never good to lose a game in any sport for any reason. I think at 21-3, you were probably thinking, God, if we can just not get blown out. I get that. But one thing that I keep going back to is this. Florida last year led the nation in passing, right? This year they lead the nation in rushing. Has any coach, any offensive coordinator, any offensive mind, any head coach ever done that? Lead the nation in one totally different aspect of the game. Well, we're not even trying to run because we can't run. We're going to throw it. And a year later, turn around and lead the nation in rushing. Now, it's a long season. I get it. But when you can run against Alabama, that says a lot about your football team, a lot about your offensive linemen, and a lot about your program. When you've got 5 stars complaining because they can't play, which Lorenzo Lingard apparently did on Twitter, and to be honest with you, I think everybody's feeling is, yeah, you're not in the top 3. Because those 3 guys are running so hard. I mean, Damian Pierce just keeps amazing me. But that is pretty interesting to see if you have a chance to lead the nation in passing yards and rushing yards in consecutive seasons. Look, what I took more than anything from this game, you can do all the numbers, all the stats, how they got to beat Georgia. We all know that, okay? What I took more than anything from this game is that transformations, turning a program from mediocrity, and it's really hard to say mediocre under McElwain because they were in back-to-back SEC championships, but it was a fragile thing. It was always fragile, and you saw what happened at the end. Just fell off the cliff. To a program that can be in the college football playoff, which is what Florida's goal should be. Sometimes it doesn't happen in a year. Sometimes it doesn't happen in 2. It happened with Urban. Doesn't happen with everybody. This seems like Florida has slowly built this thing into a program where they can compete with anybody. If you can compete with Alabama, you can compete with anybody. And it took a little longer than Gator fans wanted, and it's only going to go in the right way. You see all the tweets from recruits. They're very positive. And look, I'm not going to walk away from this game and go Gators, what a great game they played. No, he lost. I don't know. I don't particularly care for the play. They ran the last play of the 2-point conversion. Personally, I get it, but I didn't like it. I could get it and not like it. That's possible. So we got a lot to talk about, obviously, today. We could go on all day about this game. You know, the bad tackling early in the game was really a brutal, that really put them in that hole. That's where they got in the holes, from poor tackling. And a lot of it, I think, too, is when you have a game like this and everybody's fired up and you're just bouncing off the walls, and you've got to kind of contain yourself. And sometimes what happens is the other team will throw, a pass out in the flat and know that their plan is he goes left and then when he comes back right, and you're so fired up, you just miss, you whiff on it. And that's what happened a lot in that game, so early in the game. But then after that, they got a lot better. All right, we got a lot to talk about. We'll be talking in just a second to my friend Peter Burns from the SEC Network. We'll talk about his take on that game and, of course, the other games in the SEC and what a fun weekend it'll be. We'll take a break right now, and then we'll come back with more on Another Dooley Noted Podcast here at the Shakow Mercandone Studios, presented by Titan MRI.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shakow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he has just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. This is Pat Dooley encouraging you to become a member of the Gainesville Quarterback Club, the oldest organization anywhere dedicated to Gator football. The club meets weekly during football season with an impressive list of speakers, including Bobby Stoops, Phil Fulmer, Steve Spurrier this year. Meetings are held at the Best Western Gateway Grand, and they have a special offer for you. The first 3 meetings you can attend for only $100. Believe me, this is a bargain, and trust me, you'll have a good time. Get off the bench, and it's time to score for the Gators by joining the Gainesville Quarterback Club.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Fight Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Okay, and welcome back to Another Duly Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Shakow Mercadante Studios. It's always a pleasure when I go and talk to our guest today, one of my favorite guys in the business, really knows the SEC better than anybody, and trying to figure out what he's got on his hands with his LSU Tigers. I know that. Peter Burns, have you figured that out? I mean, I'm struggling with that one as well.
I'm upset because I was sitting there going, well, I don't even know if I figured it out, but I think I did. I actually figured it out back in spring, and I said, Pat, that there were going to be some weeks where LSU looked like they could beat anybody and some weeks where they looked like they couldn't beat a paper bag. And we've seen a couple of paper bag weeks, and, we finally saw LSU play, with the pulse, right? Like a little bit of a swagger. They sleptwalked through McNeese State, but Central Michigan, the Chippewas, Jim McElwain coming into town, thought, all right, he's ready for this one and getting all fired up. And, I mean, they dominated on both sides. And that's what you're supposed to do to an inferior opponent. And LSU finally looked like they had a pulse on Saturday.
Yeah, well, McElwain was missing an appendix. I think that's how they took advantage of that, because he had it taken out the week
appendix,
before.
yeah. Had he had, or you only have one, right? So had he had actually one, then I think he would have been, maybe that game turns out a little different on the scouting report. That could have been a difference. So.
Well, let me get your take on Florida and Alabama. And, of course, we all watched this game, and we all kind of came away going, Florida's not what I thought they were. And apparently they can run the ball on anybody if they can run the ball on Alabama. But then you got Doring all stirred up this morning.
Yeah, because, he doesn't believe in kind of the moral victories, and he thought, hey, Alabama had that, or Florida had that opportunity, to win that ball game. And, he's right. But, as you talked about in the first part of your podcast today, is you can't afford to spot really any team, an 18-point lead, much less the dynasty that is Nick Saban and Alabama. Like, they don't ever misfire right off the bat. right? Like it seems like, hey, you may play them tight, but they never come out and they look lackadaisical or whatnot. And that's what happened. They had a great first quarter. And after that, I was really impressed with how Dan Mullen trusted Emory Jones in spots. But then more importantly, it wasn't, hey, we're going to pass the ball over the field and try to get back in this game. It was nobody panic. We feel like we can run the ball on these guys and take advantage of it. And they stuck to that game plan and damn near pulled it off. So, again, I don't know where the moral victory aspect of it, but I'm a Florida Gator fan. I'm chomping at the bit, no pun intended, Pat, to be like, dude, let's go do this one more time. And I'd love another opportunity to take out the tie.
Yeah, look, if Cumberland loses by 2 to Georgia Tech instead of 144 nothing, yeah, that's whatever it was. That's a moral victory. But no, there are no moral victories. But it's funny when all my people got home from the game and everything, they were all really happy, and I'm like, wait a minute, you lost. But I think there was that feeling like, okay, we thought they might just, seal club us, we were going to be in trouble, and instead, I mean, they were right there. They showed that Alabama doesn't control the line of scrimmage on Florida. At least right now, they don't.
Right. Now, the question is, all right, was this kind of finding, Alabama finally playing somebody with a good pulse, like a good solid team that has, that can control both lines of scrimmages pretty well? Probably, because Mercer didn't do it, and we know Miami's kind of fraudulent once again. So,
yeah.
I look at this team and think, hey, all of college football thanks Florida for what they did, because they showed that, hey, Alabama is susceptible. They proved the blueprint that I think Lane Kiffin's going to try to use coming up in 2 weeks, and a blueprint that that George is going to look at now and have to pay attention. Like, hey, listen,
Sure.
All right, Florida is legit right now. I know we got a great defensive line, but when we get to Jacksonville, we better have this thing figured out, because that's going to be a threat, especially if Anthony Richardson comes back into the fold with the healthy hammy.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I would have loved to have seen him in there for one play. That 2-point conversion. I think everybody was like, wow, man, what if they run him in there and he runs a jump pass? Place will go nuts. But I mean, I also understand how those hammies can become 6-week deals. So I get what they're doing. They're trying to win more than just one game. But I'm wondering what you think the Alabama narrative is on this in terms of their fan base, which now is like, we got run over by Florida.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole thing, and Doring was talking a little bit about, hey, listen, Alabama's not the elite Alabama that we know, that just will, that plays every single quarter of college football like they did the first quarter in the swamp, right? Like they
Right.
are susceptible. And I went back to him, and he got a little, we went back and forth on our show this morning, and I said,
You guys get chippy? Did you get chippy?
We got a little chippy. We didn't have to be separated, but I said, what doesn't that make you elite? I mean, that was the 5th largest crowd. I had people that have been to a lot of SEC games say that's the loudest they've ever heard a stadium. And that's saying something, right? And yet Bryce Young played pretty flawless, for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And, they couldn't run the ball extremely well, and they got the ball ran on them. But did they end up getting an SEC road win versus a really good quality opponent? They did. And I think Alabama kind of played their B game, to be honest with you. So, if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm waking up and I'm like, all right, let's take a dose of reality. This is not 2020's team, okay?
Right.
But it was a win to where we already know, hey, where are our pressure points at and who's going to try to attack us, when and where. Well, now they know that, and they can try to shore that up in the next couple of weeks.
I know it's early in the season, but there is a possibility, and this would boggle my mind, and my mind's not easily boggled, although it's fuddled a lot of times, of Florida leading the nation and passing one year and rushing the next. I mean, right now they would do that. I mean, think about that. That doesn't happen.
Well, because rarely do you have a play caller that can do it and call games and the way Dan Mullen does, right? I mean, think about how many different quarterbacks he's had, but he's found different ways to build them, right? Whether it's Alex Smith or Tebow back in the day, or the success that he had with Dak Prescott. And like what I love about Dan and how he calls his offense is that a good chef goes into the kitchen and says, what ingredients do I have? I'm a good enough chef. I'm going to bake a good meal, right? I'm going to make something up. Some guys, like let's take Mike Leach's offense. He goes, this is the meal I make. I make it really well. It's an air raid offense. This is the one dish I cook, but it's really good, okay? Well, Dan looked at this and says, all right, if I don't have the most accurate passer in the world in Emory Jones, and I'm still developing him in that way, how else can I draw up an offense that's going to go up against Alabama? And he's done that. I mean, that's why he's been incredible of a hire. And I think that's why Gator fans right now look at this and go, all right, we get 1 or 2 players back. We get healthy, and we got one more opportunity. What can Dan draw up at that point? So, again, I think that's the thing, and that's the biggest credit to Dan Mullen is being able to call offense, and that's one of the reasons why it was brilliant for Scott Strickland to say, all right, yeah, I know we did this already once in Starkville, but let's try to do it again in Gainesville.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game this week with Tennessee coming to town. Again, another home game for Florida, but Tennessee has been obviously defensively against Pitt. They were terrible. The Pitt turns around. Who did Pitt lose to this weekend?
Western Michigan. Western Michigan is who they lost to. Yeah,
that's not a good
crazy
loss. But
no.
Yeah. But I mean, you gotta. This is the perfect trap game. In other words, you've got to come in and be ready to go. Your crowd still needs to be into it. Just don't. I said this in my column on the on WRUF.com. I go, it's not enough just to root for the games where the team, where Alabama's in town. You got to do it for all the games.
Well, and again, I think home field advantage definitely made a difference and helped Florida in that game against Alabama. And I know that Bryce Young didn't make mistakes, but they looked a little befuddled, as you talked about earlier, and that gave you an opportunity. Like, what good is having a stadium that holds 85,000 plus if you're not going to use it? And that's I mean, you got to realize that when I talk to Tennessee fans, they feel like this game comes at the absolute perfect time, Pat, because they looked a little bit better, albeit Tennessee Tech, and they're like, you know what, we're catching them because they think we're the old Tennessee. Well, guess what? They kind of still are the same old Tennessee, but their mentality right now is the idea that, hey, Florida's Super Bowl was Alabama, right? And guess what? They didn't win that game. We can catch them in the weeds. Sure. So I know Dan says he's going to tell that to all the guys. And I know the guys are like, yeah, I know. But I want to see, is that fan base going to be ready for it? And I want to see how quickly they start in this game coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously the team that Florida is always looking at is Georgia, and they've done everything they need to do so far. I don't know how good they are. I think they might be really good, but they might,
Pat,
nothing
good.
I've seen.
Pat, they are so
defensively, they're so good.
And offensively too. Again, you got to go back. I still think Clemson has a top 5, if not maybe the 3rd best defense in the country right now, right behind what I think I've seen out of Texas A&M. I think their defense is good, but I think Georgia's defense is the best. I saw it up close in person. Clemson have some dogs on defense, and yeah, they struggled week 1, but they're still at around 65%, 70% as far as their offensive personnel. And, what they are able to do right now is they were able to win in multiple different ways, right? They can run the ball, they can pass the ball real well. And by the way, they can win the field position game, which is what Alabama has done for ages. He's building kind of an Alabama type team there. So, I was the same way. First, I kind of started thinking, you know what? I still think it's Alabama is maybe the best team in the country right now. And the more and more I realized, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this Georgia team is elite. But guess what? While Florida may not have the same amount of talent right now, I'll still put Dan Mullen as a head coach over what I've seen in Kirby Smart as far as game adjustments in a heartbeat right now. And I think that's a great equalizer if you can continue to win out and they go out and play that game in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and the problem for Florida is they played Alabama and Georgia. Of course, the schedule works out for them. But, now the Arkansas game looks a little tougher. The Auburn game may look a little tougher. So maybe it will be interesting to see how they are able to do, going forward. But the rest of this conference is kind of like we're still, I thought after a third of the season we would know what everybody has. I'm still like, I'm not 100% sure about Texas A&M. You mentioned their defense is playing great. The offense, yeah, you never know what you're getting there.
Right.
LSU, I like you said, that first game kind of put a sour taste in your mouth. But there are teams out there that are really pretty good teams, and it's all going to kind of feather out as we go through it.
Yeah, it's typical SEC where it's just a murderer's row, right? I mean,
Yeah.
me and Doring on our show on SEC Network today, we're trying to discuss like what's the worst team in the SEC West. I mean, I don't think that's an easy. Is it LSU? All right, is it Mississippi
I don't
State?
know the answer to that.
I think they're all pretty darn good. I got to be honest with you. If I looked at LSU or Mississippi State and I put them in the ACC, they might be the second best team in the ACC. Yeah. If I put LSU in the Pac-12, they're right there with being the second best team in the Pac-12. I mean, I know they lost to UCLA, but that is just crazy. And to think about Texas and Oklahoma is going to be joining this conference in a couple of years. It's just, again, it's funny how everybody complained about that. And I'm like, don't you realize if you don't like the SEC, you should love more competition coming into the SEC because that's going to make it even harder on every other team trying to make it to Atlanta and being a part of the college football playoff.
Absolutely, it will. It's going to be interesting to see this 2-game stretch for Florida, for example. And this is what you get a lot of in the SEC, where you got 2 games where you better bring your pudding snacks for both games. In this case for Florida, to go Alabama. Then you got Tennessee, which has got a new coach and is going to run some things that you haven't seen. And then you got the Cats, C-A-T-S, up in Lexington. I mean, that's a really tough stretch of schedule that Florida has.
That's tough to say. Stretch of schedule. I couldn't say that fast.
Apparently it is.
Myself.
I didn't think it was. But.
And I just saw like Big Blue Nation exploded on Twitter earlier today when they announced the kickoff times, and that's going to be a primetime game in Lexington. And over the last couple of years after Florida used to just beat down the Cats for 30 some odd years, that they feel like, hey, all right, this is a little bit of their Super Bowl brewing as well too. So again, it's part of the rivalries of there, and they almost got scared. Kentucky got scared by Chattanooga this week, which probably the worst thing they could have had. Well, it's kind of that perfect win because it's a good way to show, hey, listen, we're not quite there yet, and Stoops is going to rip them a new one, and they can't just lollygag throughout a game any longer. So, you almost kind of wish that they would have beaten Chattanooga like by 40 or so, and so that way they think that they're a little bit better than they really are. So, again, I think all of college football, this is as fascinating of a year as I've seen kind of early in the year. We've already had 19 ranked teams lose in 3 weeks, which is nuts.
Well, and let me ask you this last question as we go get ready to get out of here, and I appreciate your time, Peter. Always great talking to you. But it appears to me that the aberration that we saw last year with offense, which was blamed on COVID by all defensive coordinators, and now I'm starting to think maybe they were right. I mean, because I'm seeing defenses play at a higher level. Now they're still not playing, pat die, rub it in your nose, run it 3 times. Yeah. But teams are playing better defensively this year with having a spring, having a fall camp to work on it.
Yeah, and Coach Saban even talked about that. The game is cyclical, right? Like we kind of go through this, hey, all of a sudden these guys are doing it. Well, guess what? If it works well, everyone's going to copy it. And then now what's happened is here in the SEC, these coordinators have gotten 2 years of film of, hey, how Lane Kiffin runs this offense, how Bill O'Brien's going to run his offense over at Alabama. And not only do they know the X's and O's, they recruit to stop those type things as well too. True. So I think that's a big part of it. And I like it. I think a perfect football game should be like 24-21 where every play feels big, but you see a little bit of action. And I think we're seeing, a little bit of that average come back to SEC football at least.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, hey, keep track of Doring there for me. I worry about him.
It's so funny because he's like one of the most confident people in the world, and like just one or two Alabama fans kind of got underneath his skin today, and I love it because I don't have the confidence of Chris Doering, but little does he know.
I'm glad it still matters that much to him, though.
No, well, he does because I mean the guy absolutely loves Florida football, and I mean I'm watching this game in studio with him, and you would have thought that they would put a gun to his head if they lose that game, right? I mean he lives and dies by Florida football, but at the same time, what I admire Chris so much is that he wants the best for him, and he's going to call it the way it is. And that's what he thinks. He thinks this team under Dan is good enough to win if they meet again, and he wants them to get that opportunity for sure.
Peter, it's always a great pleasure. It's always great talking to you, and I know you had to put your golf game on hold here a little while, but one day you and I are going to play golf together. I promise you.
I'm ready. I got all my golf flags here in behind me, so
yeah, I see that.
We'll do it one of these days for sure, Pat. It'd be my honor.
All right, Peter. Great seeing you, buddy.
See you, buddy.
Peter Burns from the SEC Network. Great stuff from him as always. We always love having him on. And we will take a break. We got a lot of things to get to. Obviously, the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend, this, that, and the other. I got a good one for you this week. Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. Leonardo's Millhopper Quick Picks. Man, never ends. All the stuff we got to do. All right, we'll do all of that and more, maybe. Seems like I'm missing something. So, hand law. Hand law. For God's sakes. We got to do that. All that coming up here on the Another Dooley Noted Podcast. It is presented by Titan MRI and brought to you live from the Shakow Mercandone Studios.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shakow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Another Duly Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. This is Pat Dooley encouraging you to become a member of the Gainesville Quarterback Club, the oldest organization anywhere dedicated to Gator football. The club meets weekly during football season with an impressive list of speakers, including Bobby Stoops, Phil Fulmer, Steve Spurrier this year. Meetings are held at the Best Western Gateway Grand, and they have a special offer for you. The first 3 meetings you can attend for only $100. Believe me, this is a bargain, and trust me, you'll have a good time. Get off the bench, it's time to score for the Gators by joining the Gainesville Quarterback Club. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he has just opened up a place here, Adam's Ribco to go. What gave me the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where, everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Ribco to go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Okay, welcome back. Appreciate Peter Burns for being on the show. Great stuff from him as always. Robbie Andrew will be on Friday. And again, we are going to start doing even more with Robbie because we've gotten a lot of requests. I didn't know he was that popular. Including from Hand Law, which wants to be a sponsor of Robbie's segments. So why not go to the Hand Law 3 Things right now? Let's go ahead and do that. 3 Things is presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by I'm trying to look here and I can't do it though. By visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. I don't know how they do that on the like you can tell on Saturday Night Live when they're looking off stage at the cue cards, which you're supposed to do. They tell you do not look away from the cue cards. You've got to look at them because it makes it normal. Like that's what you're looking. But that wasn't normal for me. But I still was able to read it. So Hand Law is obviously, we appreciate them so much, and they're doing 3 things, and they're also going to be sponsoring Robbie Andrews' appearances. They'll start on Friday. We're going to try to do it once a week with him. We'll figure it all out. We're going to have some good things. Keep going through this football season. Look, let's just pile it all on during football. This is the time of year we care about the most. We care about everything else. We care about volleyball. We care about, obviously, when Gator baseball gets going and softball and basketball. But football is what matters around here. Let's just do it. So let's do Hand Law 3 Things. So number one, if you were not feeling good about your team losing Saturday, that's what Florida fans should have felt. Again, there's no such thing as a moral victory. There's no such thing as, well, we were close. No, you lost the game. You lost. If you'd won the game, it would have been different. You get the 2-point conversion, win in overtime. Totally different atmosphere, but still, I think a lot of people felt good about this game for a lot of reasons. You know where they didn't feel good? In other parts of the state. For example, FSU. And I will say this, the Pat Dooley Lock of the Week is gone. It is out. It has been dismissed. We didn't get a sponsor for it, and now I get why. Because I don't know what I'm talking about. I had FSU getting to 5 points. They got destroyed by Wake Forest. Destroyed by Wake Forest. Wake Forest. Have you ever been to Winston-Salem? It is like a neutron bomb hit the town. There are no people. It's just buildings. That's all it is. Wake Forest, they got destroyed. I was way wrong. I will tell you this. In the first half of their game against Notre Dame, maybe even to the third quarter, you probably thought FSU's back. He's got it figured out. They've got these 2 quarterbacks, or in that case, 1 quarterback, but he ended up. And Mackenzie Milton has struggled since that first day when everybody was all weepy and everything. And I think it's a great comeback. But he's not the same guy. He just doesn't look like it. And they don't have enough good players. They're not any good. They are not any good. They are, you know what's not good? 0-3. Okay, so you had FSU doing that. And then Miami, I'm watching their game against Michigan State, which is the early game. And I'm like, well, Miami's going to win this game because they've got enough. I mean, Derek King will give you just enough, but Michigan State's offense is terrible. It won't matter. And then Michigan State's offense started scoring points. Miami couldn't do anything, and they got killed. Everybody's getting killed. I was stunned at those 2 results. I'm not surprised that those 2 teams lost. I'm just surprised they got beat so badly. So Florida, you can say this. You're number 1 in the state of Florida. Academically, certainly every other way, city, definitely in football. You're number 1 in this state. This state's not very good. By the way, the ACC now has a losing record against Power 5 teams. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to get a team in. You know, if Clemson even goes undefeated, so what? So what? All right. Yeah, I've had trouble with that mic before. I'm there. I got to lean into it. Lean into it. All right, number 2. And I don't know how many of you feel this, but I do. It feels different in college football right now because I don't think any of us sit here and go, oh, I know who the 4 teams are. I don't think you do. You know, we've seen Clemson look awful. Another week of looking terrible. And again, sometimes you watch games, you go like, these guys are getting paid to take a shotgun snap in the end zone, which results in a safety and puts the game in jeopardy, as Clemson did. Clemson doesn't look like anything special. Ohio State, their defense, they got a new defensive coordinator. They changed who was calling it, still wasn't very good. Oklahoma's been, kind of good, but again, we're 3 games into this thing, and we have no idea who those 4 teams are. Now, what happens is because of the polls and everything, everybody's all excited about this team, this team, this team. I have no idea who the best team in college football is, none whatsoever. It might be Georgia, unfortunately, and hopefully it's not. But it does feel different this year. And which is weird because you would have felt that last year would have been the year with all the stuff going on that we would have had a bunch of aberrations. But it may be this year with everybody back to somewhat normal, but not quite normal. And I don't know. It's a weird year. And that's cool. I hope it's an exciting, fun year. I hope we have no idea until we get down to the end instead of knowing it's going to be Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama. I don't think it will be. I really don't. And finally, number 3, in the NFL, there's a lot of discussion about taunting calls. There were a bunch of them over the weekend. To me, spinning the ball. See, the thing is, you catch a pass, you take a hard hit, you get up and you spin the ball. If you spin it, but it's not near the guy, you don't get a penalty. But if it's near him, and you may not know it's near him, because you just got knocked crazy. So you spin it, and you go, that probably shouldn't have been near you, but you get a penalty. Taunting calls are kind of like pass interference calls. And Gator fans are upset about those. I watched the game, again, with multiple replays on every play. I didn't think the referees missed calls. But look, pass interference calls, like I said, with taunting calls, it's judgment totally. I mean, the one with Avery Hellman, everybody got all upset about. He did have his arm around his back. Now, that's not always called. And that's the thing that's crazy about it. In college football especially. But, that not everything's called the same way all the time. And it's not. But you know what? You go watch a Florida baseball game, look how many pitches are outside that called strikes and pitches that are right over the plate that are called balls. I mean, it is just the way it is, and we have to deal with it. And I know that their Florida coaches weren't happy with some of those calls, but in that game. But I don't know. It just seems like we got to get. You're never going to be perfect. You would like it to be perfect. You let these guys hand fight to a point, and then you decide here's where I'm going to make a difference. Me as an individual referee, I'm going to make a difference. Here's where, remember the great taunting call on Robert Gillespie that year when they were at Ole Miss or Mississippi State, and he scored a touchdown as he ran the end zone. The band started to crank up, and he went like this, and they called him for 15 yards. That's ridiculous. I don't want the game to become kind of crazy that way, where guys are doing dances right in guys' faces or stepping over them. I hate that move. But there's got to be a fine line. There's got to be a way to decide this. There's got to be a way to decide what's interference and what's not interference. And that's what the referees would tell you. We have discovered that way. Here it is. We leave it up to the judgment of the official. Well, sometimes they have bad days. Sometimes nobody cheats. Nobody's trying to make a mistake. But sometimes they do. And it's just the way it is. All right. So appreciate Hand Law for all they do for this show with the Hand Law 3 Things and sponsoring Robbie Andrew, who will be on Friday. Let's go to the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend. And I thought long and hard about this, and I went a couple different directions. And finally, who I stuck with was Brenton Cox. I've been waiting for Brenton Cox to play at the level I thought he could play at. I thought he did Saturday. And I think he gave Florida the kind of player we usually see from Alabama. Now, Alabama also had a guy named Will Anderson who was all over the place and really hurt Florida in that game. But Florida could counter with a Brenton Cox, and that was great. I know Gervon Dexter played well. I know some of the other guys played well, and you could make an argument Emory Jones for Gator of the weekend. You could make an argument for volleyball won a couple of matches. Good for them. Coastal Carolina, you're not getting in the Gator of the weekend. Not on my watch. Adams Ribco to go. Gator of the weekend is Brenton Cox. Maybe this will be the first of a series of great games for him, and all of a sudden he takes over and starts dominating, and he can do that. He's that good. But you got to be put in the right position. You got to, because it's not all just, I'm just going to rush the passer on every play. But anyway, Adams Ribco to go. Gator of the weekend here in the Shotgun Mercantile Studios is Brenton Cox. Let us continue. It is time for the Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack, which we love doing. Every week we give you the 12 teams that we think are the 12 best, at least if we were doing a playoff. Alex Wesley Construction, love where you live. Here are our updated rankings. We're not taking Alabama out of number 1. They went on the road and won in a tough place to win. We all know how tough it was. Florida fans, you yelled your lungs out to make it tough. And they still managed to win the game by a mere 2 points. So I'm putting Alabama 1, Georgia 2. Certainly their win was a good win, nothing spectacular. But number 3, Oregon. I liked Oregon. Remember before the season I had Oregon really high, and some people were saying, you're crazy. And then I kind of dropped them down. Well, they've done nothing but win since then, so I still got them number 3. Penn State, number 4. That's a big win over Auburn. They've got nice wins on their resume. Penn State may be the only team the Big Ten can count on to get into the college football playoff. They may be, I don't know. I watching that game, Penn State's good. And I still don't know how good Auburn is. I don't know if they're any good or not. Penn State's good. There's always a difference between great and really good and good. And like right now, Penn State has shown me they're good. I want to see if they're really good, and then they have to prove whether they're great or not. Number 5, Oklahoma. Number 6, Texas A&M, which is a weird team right now. I'll just leave it at that. Number 7, Iowa. We talked last week about those big wins they had. Number 8, Arkansas. I give Arkansas all the credit in the world. Sam Pittman's doing a heck of a job. I just like putting them up there. They won't be there at the end of the year, but I'm putting them up there now. Number 9, Michigan. Michigan playing Northern Illinois, I believe. I was watching. I was like, that game may end up be good. Northern Illinois played a couple of good games in a row. That game could be really interesting. And it was like 63-10. Come on. Maybe Michigan's figured it out. Maybe they finally have. Number 10, Cincinnati. That was a good game too. I'm trying to remember the game. Was it Cincinnati UCF? I don't know. Too many games. I watched too many games this weekend. BYU at 11, and then the Mighty Gators at number 12. Florida did not drop in either of the polls. Stayed right where they were. We shouldn't. You lose by 2 to number 1, you shouldn't drop in the polls. And by the way, Florida's game next week against Kentucky will be either 6 or 7. Okay, depends on what happens in these other games. We'll know that more later. All right. Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. We are down to the blank cutting time, and that we're going to give you one more chance to qualify. One. If you qualify on Friday, Robbie Andrew will come in here and pick. We're going to go back to the thing where he's actually going to physically pick it out, and you can see if you won $25 at Leonardo's, plus a bunch of other great prizes. They're coming your way. Nobody's complained yet. And we got a couple of qualifiers last week for the weekend game. El Sailor, Drew Barry, who's won before. And so we'll pick Friday. Last chance to qualify. Carolina at Houston. That's the game Thursday night. So the good thing is you get your name written down on a little sheet. It gets dropped in at the top. You never know. May get picked out. Carolina at Houston is a game. I don't expect anybody to watch that game on Thursday night, but that is the game, and you will be able to win or qualify for the Adams Ribco. Not the Adams Ribco, with Leonardo's Mill Hopper Quick Picks. The Adams Ribco to go is a different thing, as you know. Trying to struggle a little bit today. All right. We've got one more thing to do, and that is it. This, that, and the other. This, that, and the other. Oh, this, that, and the other. It is brought to you by Darshakow Insurance, Ballyhoo Grill, and the Ironwood Golf Course. All of them are bringing you this, that, and the other. Well, this is that, look, if you're going to have a college football game between two Power 5 teams, what do? You make sure you have either a neutral crew or usually a crew from the visiting side, which is what they did for Auburn and Penn State. It makes sense. It makes sense in a way when you have neutral crews for bowl games because you don't want anybody to be unjustly, oh yeah, I remember you, yeah, I know what things you do. I don't even know that it matters, to be honest with you. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if it matters where the referees are from. But in this case, they were from the SEC. And that is that. The this is it's been a long-standing rule. You get teams from the other side. The that is that the SEC crew did do the game. And the other is that they misplaced a down. Now, Penn State is not going to complain because they won the game. But they misplaced a crucial down in this game. I think it was in the second quarter. I think there was a misplacement of a down in the Florida game, too. I've got to go back and look at every play. But there was a possession that Alabama had where they had a intentional grounding, and they didn't count it as a loss of down. I'm telling you. I'm going to go back and look, and by Friday I'll have that. So the other is you get a crew in that's supposedly impartial because you want to show that, hey, we want everybody to be fair. And what happens? The SEC crew misses. Now, the interesting thing for those guys is because when you miss a down in a football game, it's a pretty big deal. It didn't turn out to be. But you get punished by the league. The league says you're not going to that bowl game. You're not going to this game. You're not going to that game. We're going to take it away from you because you screwed up. So we'll see how that happens. That is this, that, and the other, presented by Darshakow, Ballyhoo Grill, and Ironwood. I think I've covered everything. Thanks so much to Alex Wesley Construction for our 12-pack. A great one again. Leonardo's Mill Hopper. Quick Picks, Adams Ribco to go, Gator the Weekend, Hand Law, Three Things. Friday, thanks so much to Peter Burns. Thanks so much to Titan MRI, our sponsor. Our main sponsor, to Shakow and Mercandane Studios. Thanks to everybody for making this a fun show. We could have talked forever about Florida and Alabama, and we will continue to talk about that on the tailgate on radio. And then next Friday, I'll be back here with Robbie Andrew. We'll talk about Florida, Tennessee. We got some great Florida, Tennessee stories. We'll have a lot of fun with that. Until next time, I am Pat Dooley for Evan, my great producer. I am deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.